Welcome back to the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast. I'm your host, Dale Corpus, a senior transition specialist and real estate expert helping families navigate senior moves with confidence and clarity. Today's guest is someone who's truly seen it all when it comes to senior transitions. I'm excited to welcome Nelly Cotto, the Regional Sales Director at WellRive, formerly managing moves and more and gentle transitions, and they've been around as a total of for over 30 years as companies. She's a former move manager who's now working on the front lines of business development as she's here to share a behind the scenes look at what it takes to support seniors during one of the most emotional and complex chapters of life, moving. We're diving into what a senior move manager really does, how families benefit from professional help, tips for smoother transitions, real stories from the field, and so much more. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast, where we help families navigate senior living, real estate, and everything in between. Hosted by Senior Transition Specialist Dale Corpus, this show brings you expert insights, real solutions, and stress-free strategies to make senior transitions simple. Ready to dive in? Let's go.
And we're back, everybody. Nelly, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Great. Thank you for having me here today.
No,
I'm excited. Let's get
I'm
going.
excited too. You're the first move manager that I brought on. What you bring to the table in helping seniors is so valuable. So I wanted you to share everything. Okay. So that being said, Nelly, can you tell us how did you get started in senior move management?
Actually, I had been moving personally quite a bit my whole
Mhm.
life. I had no idea I'd be doing this. I had applied for a job in staging homes with managing moves and more, and um, ended up hating staging. And then the owner of the company at that time said, "No worries, Nelly. We've got the other division." Um, and went on my first job and just fell in love. We were helping this 92-year-old who was just beside himself with the whole transition. And so I just fell in love. And I've been, very much entrenched and passionate about this since.
Perfect. And what made you transition from being a hands-on move manager to a current sales and regional leadership role?
Well, it just first this role came, maybe 6 months prior to me taking it on,
Yeah.
and someone else was hired because I was just in the midst of working with about 4 clients, and I just felt I couldn't leave at that point. Stop doing that work.
Yeah.
Um, and in fact, I was kind of convinced, I had to be convinced to take the role when the
Oh, wow.
person had to leave suddenly, who had taken the role, just because I didn't want to stop working one-on-one
Yeah.
um, with senior adults. So I said, okay, I convinced myself because when I go to communities, I have the opportunity to sit and talk with senior adults.
Yeah.
I do a lot in terms of presentations, so seminars and panels and so on. And I get to interact one-on-one and kind of counsel them a little bit.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not a counselor, I'm not trained as a counselor, but often work as one,
Yeah.
as I'm sure most of us
Yeah.
do in this industry. Um, so, I do love what I do, and I look for every opportunity to be in front of senior adult.
Yeah. And I mean, I network now too, and I'm bumping into you in almost every networking thing I'm going to. I'm almost like, Nelly is somebody I need to know, and it's Nelly is somebody I need to interview. Yeah. And also going back to just, senior move management, for those who don't know, what does a senior move manager actually do?
Well, I refer to us as the wedding planners of move management because we can do everything.
Okay.
we have started with just the decluttering and organizing, all the way to creating really beautiful floor plans, helping clients see how they can go from 4,000 square feet to
Yeah.
750 square feet and still have it feel like home. We take care of the entire transition of their thing, not of the person, but often we're very much a part of that person's transition because they're very emotional, as you know, and they're scared. They're
Yeah.
so afraid. Fear is probably the biggest challenge that we're helping them overcome throughout the process. And then, we bring them to their new space and we create a beautiful space for them.
Yeah.
We're actually known for creating home, that sense of
Mhm.
home. So when they first walk in, almost every single time what we hear is, wow, it feels like home. I wish it had
Wow.
taken this step sooner. And then we take care of everything, that's left in the home, whether it's an estate sale or we can ship items to their family throughout the country because we're able to move cross country, even globally. Um, so, bring to donation sites or e-waste or whatever. We work with realtors, just as
Yeah.
yourself, helping them to get the home ready.
Yeah.
And there's just a myriad other things that come up that we do, um, and can do. So wedding planners here, and whether they want one
Yeah.
piece of our concierge type service, or two or three, or the whole package, we work
Yeah.
individually with the family to figure out what's best for them. Um,
Hmm.
and another specialty area is what we call, and most people understand, is the white glove service.
Yeah.
We have a, you know, niche, if you can say, with luxury moves. We really understand them. Um, and it's a different kind of move. So, you want someone who really gets. So
Okay.
that's a lot.
That is a lot. You guys do a lot.
We
And
do a
that's great
lot.
because you work with different clients differently depending on how much or how little they need, right?
Yeah.
Which is nice. And related question, can you walk us through a typical moving day for one of your clients?
Sure. I'm going to use one that I did. Uh,
Okay.
it comes to mind. So it was a couple, and they were moving to independent living. We had packed the day before, so the same team that packs them is the same team that unpacks them and helps them get settled. And so on move day, we arrive. First of all, they can sleep in their bedroom that night. They don't have to sleep elsewhere.
Okay.
Their bed is the last thing that we pack. Um, so we asked them to not be present. So this husband and wife team, worked out with the community that they were
Yeah.
moving into to do activities, to have lunch there, to begin their integration. So that's one thing that we do on move day or prior to move day is encourage them to somehow find the ways, the activities to integrate starting day one. And
Hmm.
so we load the truck, transport to the new home. And then the person who is in charge of that project, we call them move managers, make sure
Yeah.
that the furniture is placed beautifully. And then the team arrives and we unpack all the boxes. We dress the bed. We complete their closet, their drawers, their medicine cabinet. We hang all the pictures. We get their computer and TV going. And our goal is to get it all done by dinner time. So when they walk
Hmm.
through that door, all the debris boxes, everything is out. And they get to step into their home, day one, integrate, live as if, they're not in disarray.
Yeah.
Is what
Yeah.
often happens.
Yep.
That
Absolutely.
family steps in and they want to do it for them, but it's a 6-month process after the senior adult has moved in, because the boxes are still there and so much still needs to be done.
Yeah. Makes sense. So, what makes a senior move so different from a regular move?
Oh gosh. Uh, senior move management is not transactional, which
Hmm.
is, you know, uh, typically what a move is. You pack, you get
Yeah.
stuff on the truck, and then, you get stuff off the truck, and then you load into the space, and maybe you'll unpack. Maybe you'll take away all the boxes,
Yeah.
but most of the time it's left for the client to take care of, the client and their family. And so the biggest difference is that relational
Mhm.
experience where we create an experience that leaves them feeling at ease.
Yeah.
We reduce the level of stress. So we create a plan early on,
Hmm.
which doesn't happen with a typical move.
Yeah.
And because this same team that packs them unpacks them, we do things like get very clear on how this person liked their silverware, how they liked, their glassware, how they like things in the bathroom. And we recreate how they like things. And
Yeah.
we make decisions with them. Look, that sofa looks like you haven't sat in it in 30 years. Why are you moving it? Whereas this is the one with the indentation. And we have that conversation. So we try to create comfort. We try to create home. And that's what we accomplish pretty much
Yeah.
every single time. That's the biggest difference, is that relational experience and the end result and the amount of stress and, frazzlement that
Yeah.
we reduce is astounding.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the stress I feel like comes from, again, a lot of these emotions involved. I mean, how do you support not just the physical, but emotional side of a senior's transition?
Yes, exactly. And that is to, meet whatever fears they have
Yeah.
head on and create solutions immediately for them and show them how this is going to work. Usually, when people are reaching out to us, they've
Yeah.
heard about us and what we did for others. And so, they need that. They need that kind of service. And when they come to us and they haven't heard about us and how we do things,
Yeah.
they immediately see, oh, and they start small with us. And then suddenly we're doing more and more, not because we're
Yeah.
pushing it, but because that particular project is calling for it. So, when we set out to create home for someone,
Hmm.
different process than, a company that sets out to pack and move someone. It's a
Right.
totally different experience.
Yeah. I want to talk more about WellRive. What is WellRive and how is it different from a traditional moving company?
So WellRive came to be because our corporate parent company, CRI, they've
Hmm.
been moving employees over 32 years throughout the world, right?
Okay.
And they decided to get into the senior move management industry. And they purchased gentle transitions first, and then after that, managing moves and more.
Okay.
And so they formed the national brand WellRive to represent their senior move management or their move management division. So we've become nationwide.
Okay.
Um, And what's great is all the folks who worked at these local senior move management companies that have been around for
Yeah.
decades, we still have all the same people working for us.
Oh,
So
nice.
it's the same value system, is the same training that we've received over the years. The added benefit is that our parent company has an infrastructure that has been in place for over 32 years. So we get to tap into that. So for example, now we can do nationwide moves. In fact, we can do global moves because they've been moving employees globally for years.
Yeah.
We can provide temporary storage.
Oh,
We
wow.
can provide temporary corporate housing. You know, the house sold, the closing came up, but their new place isn't ready yet. So we get to pack them, store everything, put them into temporary housing, and then when the new place is ready, we just complete the transition for them. So, you know, WellRive represents all that we can do, as
Hmm.
well as this local group
Yeah.
of people who still really care. And by the way, most of us are on our second or third career, and we're doing this because it's something that matters to us.
Yeah.
We're Some of us do it because we've got to pay our bills. I'm not saying we don't need to pay our bills. Um, but that's the main reason. And WellRive's mission is to help individuals arrive feeling healthier,
Yeah.
to live a better life. We stand for that. And so, you know, we represent that in our, you know, each individual's goals with this work that we do.
Yeah. So you are just not helping families move down the street. WellRive manages transitions across the country and beyond sometimes. So what's the process like, and how do you keep things smooth for families no matter where they're headed to?
Yeah. So, um, that move manager that gets
Yeah.
assigned to the project, no matter how, you know, faceted this project is,
Yes.
no matter how many pieces there are to it, it's that one person who streamlines and manages the whole thing.
Hmm.
So, getting the truck who's going to go from New York to California and get everything packed there, this person is managing and understanding and collaborating on. Um, and you know, the team in California are formed and ready to go when everything arrives. That piece that's got to go to Massachusetts to that granddaughter gets taken care of by this same move manager. And what this does is it totally streamlines and simplifies the process for that senior adult, or, you know, the adult children that are managing the move for the parents. You know, just we take care of everything because, you know, everybody is either frazzled, scared,
Hmm.
busy with family, busy with work. So we take care of all the pieces, and having just that one person to communicate with uh, just helps to bring that stress level down by a lot.
Yep. And I'm sure that helps.
It
Now,
does. It really does.
what type of services can families book a la carte versus full service?
So we often, in fact, we just I finished an event
Yeah.
where I met with several senior adults after. I'm talking about a seminar.
Yeah.
And usually they're downsizing centric, you know, like, but I talk about a lot of other things. Um, and they just they just aren't ready to move to the community,
Hmm.
but they're starting to think about it. They want to get ready. And so they're just hiring us to help them declutter. That's it. And to organize the space so
Hmm.
that they can clear their minds more. And it does help in that way, um, to then take the next step. So decluttering, organizing, we're professional organizers. We're a member of NAPO, National Association of Professional Organizers, and we can create the floor plan.
Oh,
Sometimes
wow.
that's all they want. And so we get from the community or the realtor, the new space, and we know what furniture is moving.
Yeah.
So we get to place it in that floor plan, into the floor plan. And because we know this is an older person, there's got to be a certain flow to the
Hmm.
furniture. So we keep that in mind. Sometimes we get hired just to pack.
Wow.
That's it, just to pack. And so our team, mostly women still, and this shocks a lot of people because they're so used to moving companies having, young guys. But they're mostly women who are long-term employees, come in and we very carefully pack a lot of boxes or little uh, boxes. So sometimes we get called in to just unpack. They thought that they could take it all on, but it's too much, and they need, like, after 3 months of getting ready for the move, and then the move happened, and we walk into the space because they just want us to unpack, and the person's on the couch, like, okay, take that over there, put that over there. And so we can help them do that. Sometimes they don't even want us to do the full settle in, but most of the time we do settle in. We hang the pictures.
Yeah.
We make everything quite beautiful, so we end up staging the space for
Yeah.
them. Um, and then other times we are called in to just clear out. So, we can help identify items are of value.
Hmm.
And most people think that everything in their home, because of what they paid for it, they think most things in their home they can get money for, but
Hmm.
it turns out that that's not true. That the resale market is pretty saturated. And so, there aren't as many opportunities to sell as they may think, but we do place any items that can be sold. Um, and then the clear out can also mean, bringing lots of items to donation,
Yeah.
or as I mentioned earlier, deliver to family members. We can do e-waste. We can take care of documents, and so on. And then, there are other things that we can do, like the storage. One time we handled a move and they wanted us to not bring the items to the unit. They wanted us to bring the items to a storage unit to situate it just so and label things. And so, lots went to the unit, but lots did not. And they did the sorting after the move because the closing just happened so quickly for
Yeah.
them. And they were able to go into that storage unit and sift through everything. And then we brought stuff back or over to the new place and then cleared out the storage unit after. So every project is unique. We've done things like helped a senior retirement community, actually, and also businesses who are renovating to remove everything. We put it into storage for them. And then when the renovation is done, we bring it back and we stage it for them.
Oh, wow.
So it's even more beautiful than before we arrived.
You guys sound like really good problem solvers.
We have,
Um, what's an example of a unique situation where WellRive helped a family bridge a tricky transition?
okay, so the first thing that comes to mind is a young family,
Okay.
uh, 2 kids, both professionals.
Uh-huh.
We get a call. This was last year. Um, and they're both bedridden. They were hit like 2 days before the move is scheduled. They've got to be out. Uh, it's not COVID, but it's definitely the flu or something more. Um, and the house closing said that they have to be out by this date. They weren't feeling well for about a week and they delayed. And this is very typical, procrastinate and they think, oh, my however many years of living here can be taken care of in 2 days. Um, so, we came in and fortunately the kids had school. Um, and so we had many hours where we can go in, we can pack, um, and, we're packing and sorting and, you know, the wife is on the couch. She can't get up, but she's giving us some feedback. The husband is in the bedroom, sleeping, unable to move. We're making tea for them as we're running around and doing things. Um, and they said to us after, we think that we healed faster because you guys just eliminated that major stress. Like you've had it, you had us. You took such good care of us. But anyway, like this was unusual because while we do last minute projects all the time, people who think they can handle it all on their own and don't realize the size of the project. We get called for last minute all the time, but to have two bedridden clients who could barely think of what they wanted
Yeah.
was unusual for us.
Yeah. It's as if you could read their minds. They don't even know what they want, but you kind of know what they're needing, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And, the house that they were moving to was actually larger than the
Okay.
one that they were moving from. So usually it's downsizing, but quite often it's, upsizing.
Right.
And especially with the luxury moves that we do, quite often they're going from, a smaller house in a wonderful address to a larger house, you know, a different address, a better address even sometimes. So, yeah.
Yeah. Um, I want to go back to something you talked about was relocation type of support. Can you tell us more about temporary housing and relocation support? How does that work?
Well, so for example, we are able to access what corporate housing or what housing is available. And if
Mhm.
there's nothing available, we do have accounts with many hotels,
Oh,
but
wow.
most of the time, depending on the length of the stay, we're able to put them into furnished corporate housing. I mean, not the best situation, but certainly, we're able to place them. Um, and the temporary storage of their items, means that they know that everything that needed to get out of the house is out of the house, getting that space ready for the sale of the space or whatever is going on with it. That's taken care of. Sometimes we bring one or two pieces to where they're temporarily staying. So, we have to pick up from several locations to finally deliver to their final home.
Okay.
Um, but so that's one example of relocation.
Okay. And you know what I want to do now is I want to segue into questions about moving tips, mistakes, and insights. Okay. Now, what's the biggest mistake families make when downsizing or moving a senior?
They want to take on the whole thing.
Mm.
And uh, I know you talk about this all the time, but you can't take on the whole thing. In
Yeah.
fact, um, I always suggest what could be counterintuitive,
Yeah.
and that is to only focus on the move. That's it. Especially if they're downsizing, that's a much smaller project to focus on the move
Hmm.
and get clear on what pieces of furniture they want to move and can realistically fit in the new space. Um, and get real about the storage you're going to have in the new space and what you actually use and will be using. So, what services are you receiving? Are you
Yeah.
getting 2 meals a day? Do you really need that 75-piece cookware set?
Yeah.
And people still bring them, and we say, okay, um, because they're still the boss.
Yeah.
Then we see them walking down the hall in that senior community 6 months later, a year later, and they say, "You were right. I haven't touched it even one time." So that's the biggest mistake is that they focus on everything else that's not moving. That's
Yeah.
where their focus is. And that's about 80 to 85% of the stuff in the home. No wonder they're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
That's one thing above their pay grade, if you
Yeah.
will. Like, come on, no. Just get what is moving. And then why not hire professionals to take care of that other stuff that you're not going to be using, that the family doesn't want?
Yeah.
Why take that on? And we often get the comment, well, because I don't know what from all of that, well, that I want. And I often ask the question, well, when was the last time you saw all of that? When was the last time you used any of that? So, it's getting real. Getting real about this move is probably the one thing that can help people move forward.
Now, how early should families start planning if they know a move is coming?
Yeah, the earlier the better. I always say yesterday, way before yesterday. So when I do seminars, when I'm at seminars, that question often comes up.
Yeah.
And, in the audience, probably 90% are saying they're a year to 2 years to 3 years away. They're just, trying to gather information. They're in the early stages of the transition. Um, and still in the audience, they're saying, I'm going to age in place, but I'm just checking to see what else there is just in case,
Yeah.
And that's about 95% of people in the audience saying, I'm going to age in place. Um, and so, I have to do a little Marie Kondo
Yeah.
kind of presentation where I'm talking about the benefits of getting started early, just the benefits of decluttering. That's
Yeah.
it. And just by doing that, sometimes your path forward becomes clear.
Yeah. Yeah. You just mentioned decluttering. Now, what are some tips for decluttering sentimental items? That gets tough.
Yeah. And, there's full disclosure, I'm the worst at parting with
Yeah.
my things.
Yeah.
If you look around me, like, I'm living in a very small space.
Yeah.
I'm actually on my 8th downsize personally. Well, but I've figured out how to do it.
Okay.
Because I accumulated over the decades many things that I loved. And so, what I always tell people is, first of all, um, speak to yourself. Ask
Okay.
yourself questions. Why is this sentimental? Why do I have such a fierce attachment to this one thing? And what they could find is that the reason is not really that important to them, or it is very important to them. And so decluttering isn't about getting rid of everything.
Hmm.
Decluttering is about getting removing items that don't add value to your life, to your well-being, to your everyday. Start there, right? And then items that you're really attached to, it could be that you don't get rid of many of those. However, if you've come to the conclusion that it's not one of those most important things in your life, um, I find a charity. I should say I found a charity
Yeah.
um, whose mission matters to me personally. And so, the owner of Managing Moves and More, she was the one who suggested this to me. I didn't come up with this idea because it was during a downsize. And so, I did research and found one local to where I live. And I'll tell this quick story. I've had
Yeah.
the queen bed, handmade, white quarter sawn oak. I've moved a lot. I brought that thing everywhere with me. And then this final place where I'm at, this beautiful space here, um, it just didn't fit, no matter how I worked that floor plan. So I, went to this outlet and she said, well, we can't, we're a storefront. We don't have room for that, but I have connections with uh, organizations. So she found a home for this bed
Mm-hmm.
of mine. And she calls me and she says, so I have this mother and son team who have been homeless and were very recently placed in their new apartment. And they're sleeping on those roll mats.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, they would like your bed. I didn't even have to think about parting with my bed. The idea that my bed would continue to serve and in this way, suddenly that fierce attachment dissolved. It no longer existed. Um, so, find a charity. That's the number one recommendation I have. First, ask, why is this important? And then find a charity for all those things that aren't super important.
That's good, solid advice. I like that. Now, what do you say to a senior who's really resistant to the idea of moving?
So that's tricky because we want to do what's right for them. We are
Mm-hmm.
working with them so that we can help them find their way. So one thing we often recommend is for them, to see where they're going, right? So I spoke to a husband and wife team, and she didn't want to go. I was at a community, and the community asked me to come in and talk to them, and I do this often. Um, and so she was the one that didn't want to move into the community. It's a beautiful community with wonderful activities, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll talk about having a rich life. So I sat down with them for probably an hour. I don't know if the community wanted me to talk long, but I sat with them for an hour, and her fear was that, which is very common, what if I change my mind? What if this is the wrong choice? And so, one thing that lots of communities are doing now, it's actually more of a trend that I'm seeing is, don't sell your home right away. Even though this couple has a realtor and they're going to sell their home. And, so I asked her a series of questions. So, um, describe your life to me today. And she told me, and basically she was alone. Her kids live away. Uh, their kids live away. He's a doctor, so, being retired, he doesn't have the association events and, the interaction that he used to have. They're actually alone a lot. And so I said, I asked them, are you at all social? She said, I'm not even, I don't want people. I don't like people. Right. But she was this lovely social being.
Yeah.
And so, she was just like, I don't want to. uh, but at the end of that conversation, by asking questions instead of trying to convince them, by asking the questions that got them more talking about it and thinking about it, like at the end of that, they went on 2 tours. They went on tours of 2 different units, So we're there today in their home doing what we call a walkthrough, a client
Yeah.
consultation, um, because here's the thing, when they're resistant, they still know in the back of their mind that this is the best next step. They still, most of the time, know that this is the best step for them. Uh, and it's getting on the other side of that fear that's
Got
really,
it. And it sounds like your way of questioning is just making them think about and organize their thoughts. I mean, in a way, you're forcing them to think about things that are important, and also you guys are like counselors too, and you're making them feel at ease. I think it's a combination of guiding their thoughts, and then you have a calm presence and putting them at ease.
yeah. So and again, we're not trying to convince them of anything, because it does have to be their choice, unless I'm sure you know the scenario
Yeah.
as well. There was an incident and they no longer have a choice.
Yeah. Got it.
Then, we're working with a different client.
Got it. Now, switching topics to coordination, communication, and collaboration. How do you collaborate with other professionals like placement agents, senior communities, and realtors?
So I go to a lot of events
Mm-hmm.
in the industry. As you mentioned, you see me every week.
Yep, I do.
And I just find that a great space to talk to people, because everyone is done with work. They don't have to get on a call or get to a meeting. Um, and we can just have a conversation about what they do, about what I do. Are there some, common grounds that we can then meet and help each other? Because I really believe in that. It's not just about what can you do for me? What can I do for you? What can we do for each other? And sometimes we're just that resource for example, the realtor.
Yeah.
Um, and even if they consider us their vendor, one of their vendors, I try to bridge that gap a little bit so that they're seen as more as a partner. For example, let's take the realtor partner. We have been working with about a dozen realtors for, let's say, 15 years, 13 to 15 years. And, there are 3 or 4 of this group who can't even imagine doing a sale without really promoting or recommending us, because they have had so many years of experience
Mm-hmm.
with their clients having integrated into their new home, into their new lifestyle, having their things handled in a way that makes them know that it's being taken care of, it's being well cared for. The individuals are well cared for and considered. And they've gotten referrals
Mm.
as a result of that client having such a positive experience. They're telling their friends, okay, you have to use this realtor because this realtor is going
Yeah.
to recommend this company, and it's the best experience. And again, because our number one goal, what we strive for with every move, is to create home, create that home. And it's not just the sense of home, to truly, genuinely, in every way, create home for that client.
Nice. Very nice. Now, what kind of role does technology play in the home loan process today?
So, we are able to create floor plans
Oh,
using technology, or we can draw the furniture in, or we use those magnetic boards.
yeah.
It really is different for each one, for each client, depending on what needs to get done. Um, we are able to see immediately what move manager is available, and we're able to see who's a good matchup for this client, depending on, personality and all that they're wanting, and matching that up with the move manager who happens to have more experience with that or has a love for, like when we walk into a home, the garage and the attic and the 5 rooms that have had the door closed for 10 years,
Yeah.
are overloaded. We actually have move managers who thrive with that kind of move. So, technology helps us identify and communicate in a very, very efficient way.
Okay. Love that. And what's one of the most rewarding moves you've been a part of?
I have to say that same one where they were really ill,
Hmm.
because talk about, uh, really being able to step in
Yeah.
and provide that relational
Yeah.
experience. And we didn't really get to do, the pre-planning that we typically do where we create a plan, right?
Mm.
But that move manager, she was able to connect right away and to understand what they were wanting. And, just even if I made tea one time for them,
Yeah.
so like being able to do that was like, oh, this is different. Like, this is
Yeah.
something that we can do. We did a little bit of errand running for them. That kind of stayed somehow within the scope of what we were doing. Um, and so, that was kind of outside of what we typically do, but that we do if they need it. So that was a really rewarding one for sure. And that very first move that hooked me, I'll never forget it. That client who, early 90s, and he
Yeah.
was teary-eyed. He kept coming into the kitchen where I was working and saying, what I would do if you were here. It was, yes, this matters.
Yeah.
I'm hooked. I'm yours.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you wish more people understood about your line of work?
Oh, good question. We are not a typical moving company. That's really important. We are not your movers, men who walk in. There's nothing wrong with men, by the way, who
Mhm.
walk in. Some of them are temporary, who it's about packing.
Yeah.
They got to get it done. It's about, getting it to where it needs to go. And maybe they're all in, maybe they're not, some of the people there. The most important thing to think about us is, you know, the wedding planners of the moving industry. Um,
Hmm.
we bring to this transition peace of mind.
Hmm.
We bring in the end experience. The end result is a lovely experience.
Hmm.
Um, we free up their time in many ways so that they can do other things. Um, most people don't think about, most senior adults don't think about paying for a wedding planner for their kids' weddings. And
Mhm.
what's interesting with that scenario is it's a happy experience. And yes, while it's stressful, everyone's looking forward to it. And most likely, that many years ago, it still cost twice as much as what we're going to cost.
Mhm.
Um, and, during the most stressful time of their lives, the most vulnerable time of their lives, hiring the wedding planner for themselves is the most important step in their lives.
Nice, well said. Now, I have a fun question, and it's a question I want to ask out of curiosity. What's the most unusual item you've ever helped a senior move?
Huh. It would have to be, it was a family in Palo Alto,
Mm-hmm.
and the home was probably close to 100 years old, and it was, she's an artist and an interior designer. I forget
Mm-hmm.
what he did for a living, and it was the two daughters who were
Mm-hmm.
managing this move. And they're both in their 90s,
Mm-hmm.
and they had the most eclectic collection of art. And they were bringing it all. But there was this one piece, um, and it was three-dimensional. It was flat and it was tall, and there were pieces of it that were flimsy. So we had to be super careful about it. It took about five of us
Wow.
um, to get that package in a way because we had to handle it in a way where this end doesn't. Now, if it were worth, we checked the value before we even touched it. There were pieces that we brought in, a professional art uh, packing company
Yeah.
to handle. But this one piece didn't have the value. We have auction houses that we work with. So we sent all the information ahead of time. And this is one that I was the move manager. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so, bringing that and then transporting it wasn't difficult at all. Um, but unpacking it and situating it in the new space, because it was a retirement community that was probably less than a quarter of the size of the original home. And this
Yeah.
was, while it was flat, it was a large piece. It went from floor to ceiling there. They had measured to make sure that it could fit there. Um, that's probably the most unusual piece that we packed, and it looked beautiful in the
Wow.
space. Like it made that room. It was an open living, dining, kitchen area. That
Yeah.
was amazing.
Um, so, Nelly, pretty much the last question. Any final remarks? I know we covered a lot. Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask yet? Anything?
So probably the only thing I can think of that I'd like to mention is that mm, while we can do all these things, our main goal at WellRive is to bring peace and comfort and home to all our clients. And,
Yeah.
when I get up and do a presentation, like a seminar, whether it's a co-presentation or it's on my own, I make it clear that I'm not there so that they can sign up with me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm there because I genuinely care about
Yeah.
helping them find their next best life. And
Yeah.
so I follow different influencers who their target market are senior adults. And I love what some of them say. And it seems to be consistent. And the number one thing is, just because you're in your senior years
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that you're going downhill. But there seems to be this very subtle indoctrination in our society where we talk about seniors not having as great a value once
Mm-hmm.
they reach a certain age. And these influencers talk about how it's the complete opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they have more to offer us than they ever did because of their experience, because of their acquired wisdom, because of their resources. And to try, their whole emphasis is stop thinking you are not useful
Mm-hmm.
and understand and accept that you're allowed, allow yourself to make this the best time of your life. Why not? Why not be willing to live your best life moving forward? And so when I go out and speak, I do a little motivational piece as well, because I genuinely believe that this
Yeah.
is the best time of their lives.
Well said. Well said. Now, Nelly, this was such a valuable conversation, and thank you for giving us a front row seat to what it really looks like to move with compassion, care, and expertise. If someone wants to reach out and learn more about WellRive's services, what's the best way to connect with you?
My direct number is 650-492-3702. We can have a conversation. We can start with, if you just want to quickly connect with me, you can text me at that number, or you can email me at Nelly, Nelly, Cotto, Cotto, at WellRive.com. That's WellRive, WellRive.
Perfect. And for anyone watching or listening, if you're feeling overwhelmed about helping a loved one transition and need help selling their home or coordinating the real estate side of the move, I've got your back. Schedule a free consultation with me by clicking on the Calendly link on the video version of this podcast on YouTube. Learn more about what I do at www.simplifyseniortransitions.com. DM me on Instagram for quick questions at Sold by Dale. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast and share it with someone who needs it. Thanks again, Nelly, for being on this episode with me.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And for everybody else, I'll see you on the next episode of the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast.